If the Book of Enoch is right about anything, then death is not the moment people disappear, sleep without awareness forever, or instantly step into a simple, one-size-fits-all eternity. In its most unsettling vision, the dead arrive in a divided realm, separated before the final judgment has even begun, already distinguished by what they were, what they chose, and what was done to them. And hidden inside that vision is the real warning of the book. The greatest trap is not dying. The trap is living as though moral reality can be postponed, blurred, negotiated, or escaped. The Book of Enoch has fascinated readers for centuries because it sounds ancient, forbidden, and dangerous. But before taking its claims seriously, it helps to know what it actually is. What people call the Book of Enoch is usually First Enoch, also known as Ethiopic Enoch, a Jewish apocalyptic work made up of several sections written over time, most likely between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century BCE, with some portions possibly later. It is not a single book composed in one sitting by the biblical Enoch, the figure from Genesis who walked with God. Scholars understand it as pseudepigraphal, meaning it was written in Enoch's name by later authors. That matters because the authority of the text is historical and literary, not straightforwardly autobiographical. It also matters because the book preserves a window into how some Jewish communities in the Second Temple period imagined heaven, judgment, evil, angels, time, and the fate of the dead. For a long time, Enoch was known mainly through an Ethiopic translation preserved in the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, where First Enoch retained canonical status. In most Jewish and Christian traditions, it did not. Even so, the text was never irrelevant. The New Testament letter of Jude explicitly echoes language from Enoch, which shows that at least some early Christians knew it and considered it important enough to cite. And modern scholarship changed the conversation dramatically when Aramaic fragments of Enochic literature were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran. The discovery did not prove every theological claim in the book, but it did prove something crucial. Enoch is not a medieval fantasy or a late invention. Its roots go deep into the religious imagination of ancient Judaism. That is why the Book of Enoch deserves careful attention, especially when it speaks about death, not because it gives a simple map of the afterlife that all Jews or all Christians agreed on, and not because every line should be read as settled doctrine, but because it reveals an important stage in the development of ancient beliefs about judgment and moral accountability. The Hebrew Bible often presents Sheol as the shadowy realm of the dead, a dim and undifferentiated place where human beings go after life. But Second Temple Judaism was not static. Different groups and different texts developed different answers to the problem that tormented every serious believer. If God is just, why do the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper? Enoch is one of the places where that question receives one of its boldest answers. In the Book of Enoch, death does not flatten all distinctions. It does not erase the moral weight of a life. It does not dissolve the victim and the oppressor into the same anonymous silence. Instead, one of the book's most memorable visions describes a place where the souls of the dead are gathered and kept apart until the day of judgment. This is found in 1 Enoch chapter 22, a passage that has become central to almost every discussion of what Enoch says happens after death. In the vision, Enoch is taken to a great mountain of hard rock containing hollow places, deep and smooth and terrifying to behold. The angel Raphael explains that these chambers were made so the spirits of the dead could assemble there until the appointed time of final judgment. Right away, the image rejects the idea that death is morally neutral. The dead are not one indistinguishable mass. They are sorted. The scene becomes even more striking when Enoch asks why the hollows are separated from one another. Raphael answers that divisions have been made for different kinds of dead. One place is for the righteous, and it is marked by brightness and a spring of water. Others are for sinners, for those who were not judged in life, for those awaiting pain, and for those whose cases remain open before heaven. One spirit cries out in the vision, and Raphael identifies it as Abel, still making accusation against Cain. That detail is profound. In Enoch's world, moral injury is not forgotten by death. Innocent blood still speaks. A victim's case is not closed simply because history moved on. Even the grave does not cancel testimony. This is where the Book of Enoch becomes far more disturbing than the popular summaries suggest. It is often reduced to a sensational claim that it reveals the afterlife, as though the entire message were just a hidden geography of souls. But the real force of chapter 22 is ethical, not merely spatial. Its purpose is not to satisfy curiosity about the architecture of the unseen world. Its purpose is to declare that divine justice has memory. The righteous dead are not abandoned. The wicked dead are not acquitted by time. The murdered are not erased. The unjudged are not lost in bureaucratic delay. There is waiting, but the waiting is not meaningless. It is ordered toward reckoning. That helps explain the emotional logic of the passage. If a person expected death to be the great equalizer, Enoch says no. If a person expected power, wealth, or violence to silence truth permanently, Enoch says no. If a person expected God's justice to be too slow to matter, Enoch says no again. The book imagines an unseen world already shaped by moral distinctions before the final sentence has even been spoken. That is a dramatic answer to the ancient problem of theodicy. A good person may die without visible vindication. A wicked person may die without visible punishment. But according to Enoch, neither story ends there. At the same time, caution is necessary. Enoch is not offering a uniform doctrine shared by all Jews of the period. Scholars emphasize that the Second Temple era was full of diverse and sometimes competing afterlife beliefs. Some texts emphasize bodily resurrection. Others stress the immortality of the soul. Some portray immediate reward and punishment. Others focus on a future collective judgment. Enoch belongs to that larger conversation. Its vision of separated souls in Sheol, or an underworld-like holding place, reflects one strand of ancient Jewish apocalyptic thought, not the only strand. That is important because the Book of Enoch becomes less interesting when treated like a code book for dogmatic certainty and more interesting when read as a witness to how people wrestled with justice, suffering, and the silence of death. And yet, even with that caution in place, Enoch's message remains razor sharp. According to chapter 22, death is not a doorway into oblivion. It is an exposure. Human beings enter a state in which what they truly are can no longer be hidden behind reputation, performance, social status, or public image. The dead are separated because the universe is not morally random. That is the book's basic conviction. To modern ears, the image may sound mythic or symbolic, but symbolism does not make it weak. On the contrary, symbolism can intensify truth. Enoch is saying that there is a structure to reality deeper than appearances, and death reveals that structure rather than dissolving it. This is where the title's warning about a trap comes into focus. The trap in Enoch is not simply hell in the later medieval sense, and it is not a trick hidden somewhere in the afterlife waiting to snare the unsuspecting. The trap is the illusion people live under before they die. Over and over, Enoch condemns those who imagine that their prosperity means safety, that injustice can be normalized, that corruption can become ordinary, and that judgment can be endlessly deferred. In the later sections of the book, especially in the Epistle of Enoch, wealthy sinners are rebuked in language that is relentless. They build comfort on oppression. They trust in possessions. They congratulate themselves because nothing has interrupted their success. And Enoch's answer is devastating. You have mistaken delay for exemption. That pattern matters because it transforms the question, what happens when we die, into a more dangerous question. What kind of life are we already building toward death? In Enoch, the future does not arrive arbitrarily. It grows out of alignment or misalignment with divine order. The righteous are not simply lucky. The wicked are not simply unlucky. Each group has lived in relation to truth differently. The book's cosmic imagery, with angels, heavenly tablets, watchful judgments, and separated dead, is all designed to expose the same principle from multiple angles. Human actions are not self-contained. They participate in a larger moral reality that outlasts the body. To understand why Enoch speaks with such severity, it helps to look at the rest of the book. One of its major themes is the rebellion of the Watchers, the angels who descend, transgress boundaries, take human women, and introduce destructive knowledge. These stories appear in the Book of the Watchers, the earliest major section of 1st Enoch. Whatever one makes of the details, the theological point is clear. Corruption enters history not only through human weakness, but through a catastrophic distortion of order. Forbidden knowledge becomes a weapon. Violence multiplies. Humanity is damaged by teachings that promise empowerment while producing ruin. In that world, evil is not just individual misbehavior, it is systemic, seductive, and transgenerational. That theme connects directly to the trap they don't see. Enoch's world is full of beings and powers that normalize rebellion until it looks like wisdom. The fallen Watchers do not advertise themselves as destroyers. They appear as revealers. They teach arts, techniques, secrets, and hidden things. But those gifts are poison because they sever power from holiness. They increase capacity without increasing righteousness. That pattern echoes far beyond the mythic setting of the book. The trap is always the same. Knowledge without wisdom, strength without virtue, success without accountability, spirituality without obedience, and confidence without truth. Death in Enoch does not repair those distortions automatically. It reveals which side of them a person chose. There's another layer to the afterlife vision that often goes unnoticed. In chapter 22, the dead are not all treated identically, even among the unrighteous. The text seems to distinguish categories: sinners not judged during life, those experiencing great pain while awaiting judgment, those who were slain and whose case cries out, and others who are bound to a grim fate. The passage is difficult in places because the textual tradition is complex and some ancient versions differ, but the overall point remains stable. Enoch imagines a morally differentiated intermediate state. The dead wait, but they do not wait in sameness. That detail is one reason scholars find Enoch so important in tracing the development of Jewish and early Christian thought about what later traditions would call the intermediate state. Still, the Book of Enoch does not stop at the fate of individual souls. It constantly moves toward final judgment, cosmic renewal, and the public vindication of God's justice. Waiting chambers for the dead are not the end of the story. They are the prelude. Again and again, the book insists that history is moving toward disclosure. Hidden deeds will not remain hidden. Violent rulers will not reign forever. Corrupt powers, earthly and heavenly, will not outlast the judge. This is why Enoch mattered so much in times of oppression. It gave suffering communities a language for believing that reality was not exhausted by what empire could measure. That also explains the powerful image of Abel in chapter 22. Abel's cry is not nostalgia for an old murder. It is the permanent principle that innocent blood demands an answer. In Enoch's world, the first homicide in Scripture is still alive as accusation. That means history is not a series of disconnected episodes. The moral meaning of events accumulates. Violence enters the record. Heaven remembers. From a purely literary standpoint, it is one of the book's strongest moments. From a theological standpoint, it makes a terrifying claim. If even the blood of Abel still speaks, then no generation truly buries its crimes. It carries them forward until justice addresses them. Nowhere does Enoch say that the dead can bargain their way out once they see the truth clearly. That silence is itself part of the warning. The book is not structured around second chances after death. It is structured around revelation after concealment. The righteous are comforted because they were not wrong to trust in divine justice. The wicked are exposed because their confidence was founded on illusion. This is why the book sounds so uncompromising. It is not interested in flattering the living. It is trying to break their trance. And the trance is powerful. Human beings are easily convinced that what is common must also be acceptable. If exploitation becomes ordinary, people adjust. If deception becomes profitable, people admire it. If cruelty becomes institutional, people learn to speak about it with bureaucratic calm. Enoch opposes that entire psychological adaptation. It insists that a person can be socially successful and spiritually ruined. It insists that systems praised on earth can stand condemned in heaven. It insists that delay is not denial. The trap they do not see is the slow internalization of a world so disordered that judgment starts to feel unrealistic and compromise starts to feel mature. Modern readers often approach the Book of Enoch with the wrong question. They want to know whether every image should be taken literally, whether the chambers of the dead are actual compartments in an underworld mountain, whether the geography is physical, symbolic, or visionary. Those questions are understandable, but they can miss the deeper force of the text. Even if one treats the imagery as apocalyptic symbolism, the symbolism is doing serious work. It tells us that justice is structured, that death does not erase moral distinction, and that hidden wrongs remain visible to God. The book's power lies less in satisfying curiosity about mechanics and more in destroying complacency about accountability. That is one reason Enoch continued to echo in later religious thought, even outside the canon. Its themes fit naturally into traditions concerned with judgment, angelic rebellion, and the end of the age, but its non-canonical status in most traditions also matters. Responsible reading requires honesty. First, Enoch is influential, ancient, and important, but it is not universally received as scripture. Some parts are more controversial than others. The dating of certain sections, especially the parables of Enoch, has been debated because fragments of that portion were not found at Qumran. Scholars continue to discuss how the different parts were composed, transmitted, and edited together. So when people claim the Book of Enoch gives a secret, final, or suppressed answer to the afterlife that overturns everything else, they are overstating the evidence. The real value of the book is not that it bypasses history, it is that it emerges from history and lets us hear how ancient people imagined divine justice under pressure. Even with all those scholarly caveats, the emotional punch of its afterlife vision remains intact. According to Enoch, the dead enter a condition of separation and expectation. The righteous are not annihilated, the wicked are not absolved, victims are not silenced, and final judgment has not yet fully arrived. There is suspense in that structure, but not uncertainty about the moral order itself. The universe, in this vision, is not a machine running without conscience. It is a courtroom with delayed proceedings, but perfect memory. That has consequences for how the book defines wisdom. Wisdom is not merely possessing hidden information. In Enoch, hidden information without righteousness belongs to the very powers that corrupted the world. Real wisdom means living in awareness of judgment before judgment comes. It means refusing to confuse the visible order with the ultimate order. It means understanding that what appears stable now may already be under sentence. It means knowing that death is not a loophole. In that sense, the Book of Enoch is not trying to turn its readers into collectors of forbidden mysteries. It is trying to wake them into moral seriousness. The irony, of course, is that many people are drawn to Enoch for the opposite reason. They come for giants, angels, hidden books, lost secrets, and forbidden cosmology. Those elements are there, and they are part of why the text is unforgettable. But if that is all a reader sees, then the book itself would say the trap has already worked. Spectacle has replaced repentance. Curiosity has replaced self-examination. Mystery has become entertainment. Enoch is not interested in entertaining the morally insulated. It is trying to confront them. That confrontation becomes especially sharp when we think about the way Enoch portrays time. In ordinary life, time seems to protect the wicked. Years pass, witnesses die, evidence disappears, new regimes replace old ones. People who prosper through cruelty often count on time to clean the record. But in Enoch, time does not erase. It stores. It carries souls toward their appointed period. It holds the cry of a bell in reserve. It waits without forgetting. That is a profoundly different vision from the one most societies drift toward. Many cultures eventually train themselves to believe that whatever survives long enough becomes legitimate. Enoch says the opposite. Longevity is not innocence. Delay is not pardon. Duration is not righteousness. That may be the most unsettling part of all. The Book of Enoch does not merely threaten punishment, it unmasks false peace. It says that some people feel safest precisely when they are most deceived. They eat, build, trade, accumulate, dominate, mock warnings, and interpret uninterrupted success as proof that there is no tribunal above them. Then death comes, and what they assumed was solid turns out to have been a stage set. The world behind the world was always there. They just trained themselves not to see it. For the righteous, though the message is different, Enoch does not speak only terror, it also speaks vindication. The bright chamber with the spring of water is one of the book's most haunting images because it suggests that the dead who suffered unjustly are not abandoned to the same darkness as those who caused the suffering. Their waiting is different, their condition is different, their future is different. Whether one reads the image literally or symbolically, its point is consolation grounded in justice. Goodness that seemed wasted in history is not wasted before God. This is why the Book of Enoch endures. Not because every modern reader agrees with its cosmology, not because it solves every theological question, not because it carries equal authority in every tradition. It endures because it names something people still fear might not be true, that the universe remembers the difference between innocence and violence, between integrity and corruption, between faithfulness and exploitation. Enoch dares to answer that fear with a yes. So what happens to humans when they die, according to the Book of Enoch? They do not vanish into moral blankness. Their souls are gathered. They are separated. They wait. The righteous are distinguished from sinners. The unjustly slain still have a voice. The wicked do not escape by dying before judgment reaches them. And beyond this, waiting stands a greater reckoning in which hidden things are brought fully into the light. That is the vision. Whether one accepts it as theological truth, historical witness, or apocalyptic symbol, its message is unmistakable. And what is the trap they do not see? It is the belief that accountability is optional until proven otherwise. It is the seduction of a world where judgment always seems one day farther away than convenience, ambition, appetite, or self-interest. It is the confidence that death will erase what life has written. Enoch says it will not. Death is not the deletion of the record. It is the transfer of the record into a realm where no one can edit it. That is why the Book of Enoch still feels dangerous. It refuses to let death be simple, evil be casual, or injustice be temporary. It insists that there is more going on than the living can measure, and that the unseen order is morally exact. In a culture that often treats consequences as negotiable, identity as performative, and truth as disposable, Enoch's message lands like a blow. The soul does not enter a vacuum. It enters a reality where excuses thin out, appearances collapse, and the shape of a life is known for what it was. So if the Book of Enoch leaves us with anything, it is not merely a picture of the dead waiting in hidden chambers. It leaves us with a question no one avoids forever. If death exposes instead of erases, then what are we becoming right now? If judgment remembers what history forgets, then what have we normalized that heaven still condemns? If the soul carries forward into a realm shaped by truth, then what lies are we using to survive the present? Enoch's warning is severe because it believes mercy begins with waking up before it is too late. The trap is not only in the world to come. The trap is the blindness that keeps people from preparing for it now. And maybe that is why the book still unsettles people after more than 2,000 years. It does not let the dead disappear, and it does not let the living relax. It tells the comfortable that delay is not safety. It tells the wounded that their pain is not lost. It tells the violent that silence is not acquittal. It tells everyone that death is not the end of moral meaning. However strange its imagery, however debated its status, however complex its history, that central claim comes through with terrifying clarity. If you want more deep, historically grounded explorations of ancient texts, hidden traditions, and the ideas that shaped how civilizations understood life, death, judgment, and the unseen world, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one.